What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Seth's project. My name is Seth, of course. Today we're going to be going over the initial preparation of a Japanese chisel, of the blade, and we're going to be getting it nice and sharp and super polished. It's not very hard. Luckily I had a pretty flat bevel and a pretty flat back, so this process was very quick, but some chisels that you guys have will take much longer. So first things first, I'm starting with a Shapton glass stone. It is 1000 grit. I would recommend starting at 1000 just to see how flat your bevel is. And you also want to flatten your stone. I use a flattening plate. I need to get a better one, but that's neither here nor there. So I'll wipe off the remnants, and then I will put my hands in the water and I will just kind of wipe it over the surface, just to get all the little particles off and really make sure that there's no debris on the stone. So I will actually rock the chisel and make sure that I'm registered exactly on the primary bevel. You do not want a micro bevel on a Japanese chisel. It will pretty much ruin the chisel, in my opinion. So you want a dead flat bevel from the back all the way to the cutting edge and from left to right. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to see just how out of flat the bevel is, and in my case it wasn't too far out. But if it is, you want to go to the bench grinder and you want to grind it out. And I want to do a separate video on this because I feel like this is super important and it can save you a whole bunch of time. But as you can see, I'm high in the middle and low on the outside corners, which is not awful, but I do need to do a little bit more work to get that dead flat. And it was probably only like 2 or 3 extra minutes to get that dead flat from where I am. So here I'm showing you exactly how I'm holding the chisel. I got my pinky and ring finger wrapped around the back for support, and the rest of them are pretty much holding it in place to make sure I'm not rocking the bevel and making sure I'm staying dead flat. My right hand is pretty much doing most of the work. My left hand is really just balance. I'm showing you the 2-finger technique here, but I end up using just 1 finger later on. So here I'm kind of showing you how I would flatten the bevel on a bench grinder. I don't use like the round part, I use the side that is flat, and I will register a block on the bottom to kind of get the distance. I'll go much more in detail later on about this, probably in a separate video. So here I'm kind of demonstrating, I'm kind of going at it at more of an angle. Some people like to do this, it's not really my preferred way, but this also works. You don't have to go completely sideways like I do. You really want to spend as much time as you can on the lower grits to get this bevel completely flat, because you will find on the higher grits it will be much faster to get a really good polish. So kind of spend more time on these much coarser grits to get it pretty flat. And as you can see, I've still got some low points on the corners, but I'm getting there, and it's not taking me very long. So here you can see I kind of switched over to my quote-unquote 1-finger method. I see a couple people sharpen like this, and I find it so much easier to add really hard downward pressure right where you need it using this method, and I can kind of see more of what I'm doing, and I'm not blocking so much, and it just feels more natural to use just 1 finger and kind of press down. I can really get more accurate results. That's just for me. You guys could find a better way to do it. I would also like to mention that I get my chisels and my Japanese tools from a guy named Nobori. The link to his website will always be in the description to all my videos, so if you guys would like to go check him out, make sure to go to the description. So as you can see, I've got a dead flat bevel from left to right and from the cutting edge back. This only took me about 5-6 minutes total, and that's not very much time, so this bevel was pretty flat to begin with. But as of right now, the polish on the bevel is actually pretty nice. So after you get the bevel flat, it's now time to get the back of the chisel flat. And I usually go about 15 mil in from the cutting edge, and I don't flatten the whole back. There's no real point for me to do that because for what I use the chisel for, I don't go past 15 mil. So if you guys are doing like timber framing where you're going way down into the wood, I would probably recommend flattening the whole back, but it is not necessary to flatten the whole back unless you know you're going to use the whole back, obviously. So again, I'm going to be doing just a couple passes here and kind of checking it to see how flat that I am. And like I said before, this chisel came pretty flat on the bevel and the back, so it didn't take much work to get this flat. And yeah, we'll just continue going on 1,000 grit, and then next we'll go all the way up to 8,000 grit. This is my first Shapton glass stone, and I really love it, and I wish I'd have got the glass stones from the start, but I got the Shapton Professional, which they aren't bad, but the Shapton glass stones are my preferred stone now. I really like this 1,000 one, and I will probably get the much higher grits later on. But as you can see, here on the back, I have a low spot in the top and left corner, and it's not very much, but I want this to be dead flat. So I'm going to continue going on with 1,000 grit before I move up any more grits, and make sure the bevel and the back of the chisel are dead flat, because you're going to save a whole bunch of time. Also, I don't know if you guys can tell, but I'm pinching the side of the chisel, and that's kind of like at 15 mil depth, and so that way I don't go past it, but it's not really a huge deal. But the secret to this is to not stay at 15 mil depth the whole time, so don't use that as a guide. Kind of go from 10 mil to 15 mil, and that way you don't create a ridge on the bottom of the chisel. It's really for aesthetic reasons, but it gives you a much more transition from the more gray finish to the polished finish, and you guys will see that a little later on. So now that we got the bottom and the bevel completely flat, we're going to move on here to 8,000 grit. I'm not going to worry about going to 5,000 or anything in between, because I know that the bevel is flat, so it's not really going to matter. I could actually skip all the way to 12,000, but just in case I'm not dead flat, I will go to 8,000 and then go on to 12,000. But the process here is the exact same as the 1,000. All I'm going to do is just work on the bevel, get it dead flat, have that polish go from left to right, and from the lead edge to the back. One thing that I forgot to mention, when you're working on the bevel on the 1,000 grit, you want to make sure that you can fill a burr from left to right on the cutting edge before you start working on the back. So that way you know that the bevel goes all the way down to the cutting edge, and you know you're going to get an extremely sharp chisel. So at this point, it's the first time I've really got to see the chisel really polished, and this is only 8,000 grit, and when I go to 12,000, it's like a mirror. It looks really, really nice. So now here I am on the 12,000 stone, and I made sure obviously that it was dead flat. There's really no need to hurry in this process. You want to make sure that you're being as accurate as you can, because A, you're going to save time in the end as if you stay accurate. You want to make sure you're not rocking that bevel, so just kind of take it slow. There's no reason to hurry. That's when you start getting into trouble. So here I'm doing the arm shave test, and it takes all of the hair off my arm. You can't really see, it was kind of out of focus, but you saw the little hairs. But anyway, there's the absolutely dead flat bevel, super polished, same thing on the back. So hopefully you guys learned something, and if you did, make sure to subscribe. I'm going to be doing a couple more videos on how to prepare a chisel, and maybe how to set the ring and stuff like that. And maybe one day I'm going to upgrade a couple chisels and maybe turn some handles for them and cool things like that. So don't miss it, make sure to subscribe. If you learned something, make sure to like the video, and I will see you guys next time.